Hi, everybody. So, welcome to Empress Brina CEO. Welcome to my channel. So, also, you guys can call me Sabrina if you like, or Empress, or whatever. I ain't mad. Um, so what we're gonna do today? Usually, I do tarot on here, but I also am very passionate about mental health and healing traumas from childhood, or just healing traumas in general. I am also a certified life coach, so I am very deeply invested in helping people and also myself to get over things from the past. Healing is always, it's never ending. Okay, when people say, if somebody say that they're healed and they don't have to worry about something no more, that's not true. Because you'll always be tested and triggered. You might have the tools to heal that wound, but there will always be some type of test or trigger to see if you're really wounded. I mean, healed from that wound. And you will always have to continue to better yourself. There's never going to be an end all be all. But it is a time where you can set yourself free of the thing that that has you bound. But just know you're always going to have maintenance and upkeep. You're always going to have to do that. So, anyways, so today the trauma we're going to talk about is childhood trauma. This is something that I'm very invested in. I actually specialize in childhood trauma, helping people get through that because I feel like that's the root of most of the issues that we have in a present sense. It affects childhood trauma affects how we interact with our family, friends, co-workers, things like that, how we communicate, also how we perceive things, okay? Because sometimes the trauma is an illusion. It is blinding. It stops us from seeing things as they truly are, but we look at it from the eyes of the trauma, through the eyes of our trauma. And once we learn to heal, to have the tools to heal that portion of the trauma or that was within us, we can move forward and remove the blinders from our eyes, see through the veil. So, anyways, let me stop all this yapping and get down to the nitty gritty. Now, I do have crystals. The crystals that are in front of me are going to coincide with the healing techniques and methods that'll help you if you're into that type of thing. Okay, I love crystals. Crystals are a part of me. Okay. I also have positive affirmations that I'm going to be pulling from my cards, the deck that I made, and I'm also going to use my trauma deck to give off certain things that go along with childhood trauma. Okay. So before I list those things that go along with childhood trauma, some of the things you could be experiencing, I'm going to give a definition of what childhood trauma is, okay? And you guys, I also have a podcast on Spotify called Galaxy Vibes. If you would like to go ahead and check that out, please do so. Please make sure you like and subscribe and share and comment and all that good stuff because I would like to hear what you guys have to say. I would like to help you guys do some things, or y'all maybe can help me through something or help each other through something. This is a community. This is a safe space here. So just know, okay? So, childhood trauma is often described as a serious adverse childhood experiences children may go through, a range of experiences that classify as psychological trauma. Okay, so let's look at some things. Spirit, show us some things you might experience. Okay, when going through childhood trauma, you might be an overthinker. Okay, you might overthink everything. It's definitely mental abuse. Mood swings. You deal with mood swings for sure. Okay. What else? Childhood trauma. What can cause childhood trauma, or what results from childhood trauma? Definitely mental abuse. Mental abuse causes the overthinking. What else? I know just from my research, like if a child witnesses neglect or experiences neglect or abandonment, yeah, it can cause repression as well. Like sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Look, as I said, emotional abuse. Emotional detachment is here. Let me see. Let me show that right here. Yeah. Emotional detachment. You can witness abuse of a sibling or a parent. That can cause childhood trauma. Having mental illness. Having a parent with mental illness or a caregiver with mental illness. Anything that leaves a child feeling like alone or vulnerable, overwhelmed, or terrified is traumatic. And it leaves an effect on the child, okay? Sadness. Yes, definitely sadness, okay? So, listen. In adulthood, it turns into post-traumatic stress, which is PTSD. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, okay? If the trauma persists during childhood or adolescent years, this often leaves the individual more susceptible to relationship and mental health issues, such as depression and low self-esteem. Anytime a child feels unsafe or unprotected, it can seem as a traumatic experience. And there are signs to look out for if a child experiences trauma, okay? But let's look at a little couple more because I know like sexual addiction, people can develop sexual addiction from childhood trauma, emotional abuse, they can become a workaholic, they can experience panic attacks, that's right. Food addictions, they can self-medicate, stop trying in life, they can definitely develop shame, hyper arousal, where people can call it promiscuous or whatever. This is some of the things that result from it. Feeling disconnected, feeling very numb. You know what I'm saying? It has something to do with disassociating too. See, shame, body dysmorphia, fear of change, mistrust. You could definitely become paranoid. You could be afraid of success, domestic violence, hate, and like I said, disassociating, drinking addiction, chaos, for sure. Spiritual abuse, absolutely. And people, listen, with spiritual abuse, people can think that um, it could be from like people being in cults and stuff like that, but definitely shut down. But it doesn't have to be that. Spiritual abuse can be like you going to church and people saying that you going to hell if you think about or not. You can go to hell if you have sex before marriage, which is it's not true. Also, you can go to hell if you curse or if you sin or this or that or blah blah blah. So you will constantly be feeling shame, or you could go to church and say you got raped or something like that and you became pregnant. They'll just judge you for the things that you're going through instead of trying to help you and get to the root of the problem and figure out what was really going on and help set you free from what you're going through. They put you deeper in the hole by making you feel ashamed of something that you had no control over. You know what I'm saying? Um, Instead of helping the mental illness or the trauma, it's like you put a dagger deeper in the wound. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, I'm gonna do one more. Yeah, workaholic. We already said workaholic. You become a workaholic because you feel like it's never enough. You feel lack. You feel like you're not good enough. You feel like if you don't do this or you don't do that, what are you? Yeah, abandonment issues. Yeah, you look. Childhood trauma can definitely cause. And I said it when I said it. Childhood trauma. That's what we talk about. Anything from shock, you know, schizophrenia. Definitely schizophrenia. Okay, loneliness, depression, fear of expression is definitely a big one because most of the time you went through childhood trauma, you're afraid to express yourself because most time when children express themselves, they get shot down. It's becoming more popular for allowing children to express themselves, but back in the day, it was not very popular for children to express themselves. It was like a crime for you to express yourself, for you to say how you feel. They're just like, shut up, shut your mouth. Don't say nothing else. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear it. And it's like, okay, when you repress that, when you experience repression, oh my gosh, a child is supposed to be able to express themselves. That's what we're supposed to teach them, how to express themselves. That's one of the first lessons they're supposed to learn, how to express themselves. How to get that energy out. Because if you stuff something down deep inside, you can either create a psychopath, somebody who just so angry on the inside. You can create somebody that's too passive. They will be someone's doormat, and that's who wants to feel that. Or you can create somebody that's way too aggressive towards a specific gender. You know what I'm saying? So that's fear of expression is extremely powerful. But anyways, so let's see, where was I at? Yes. So also, if a child can't verbalize their emotions, that we were just talking about fear of expression. If a child can't verbalize their emotions inside them, they act out. Okay, so think of it as if you're in an argument with somebody, but you really can't. As an adult, say you're in an argument with somebody, but you can't get the words out. You can't really say what it is you want to say, or they're not understanding what you're saying, and it's frustrating. That's how a child feels. If they can't verbalize how they feel, they act out. And a lot of kids, you might think, oh, they are just bad. They just don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to verbalize how they feel because they've never been taught to do that. They've been taught to be quiet. You know what I'm saying? A child might also complain of headaches or stomach aches. If you have taken them to the doctor and the doctor can't find any issues, then most likely this child is dealing with some repression, and it manifests physically in your body. It manifests physically. Any type of trauma that you trap inside of you, that's your body's way of getting your attention. Like, hey, something's wrong here. Hey, something's going on here. We have to look at those signs from our children. Sometimes you'll be like, ain't nothing wrong with you. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Or you take them to the doctor and the doctor be like, well, I don't see nothing wrong with them. That's because it's something spiritual. It has nothing to do with the physical realm. Yes, it manifests physically, but because I've had that happen to me, I've had all kinds of pains and stuff happening to me, and I go to the doctor. Have you ever experienced that? You go to the doctor and they're like, well, you look healthy, but it's like, nah, doc, something ain't right. They're like, well, I don't see anything wrong with you. They make you feel like you're crazy, but you're not. Your body can only handle so much. That's why we're meant to process and filter our emotions and release it. You know what I'm saying? Because it can't stay. You know what I'm saying? So, let's see. Also, if your child is experiencing like angry outbursts, okay, this is very common. Also, it just might pop out of nowhere, like hence the word outburst. It might just come out of nowhere. You're like, what is wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? Or it might seem like your child is like really overreacted, but they're not. They just don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to release what they're feeling, and it's like built up. Just like anybody, an adult. If you stuff something down so far, it's like a ticking time bomb. Eventually, it's gonna come up and it's gonna come out, and it's gonna come out violently. That's how a child feels. Or if your child is experiencing sudden clingy behavior. Some kids may become very clingy to the parent or the caregiver after a tragic event. So if something happened to them, a child might be extra clingy more than normal. If a child has been molested or raped, you might be to the person who didn't offend them. They might become more clingy. So say the father molests the daughter or the son, the child might be more clingy to the mother. Or if the mother molested the child might be more clingy to the father. Or if the mother is the one who is abusing the child is automatically going to run to their father. You know what I'm saying? Cling to the father for protection. So Also, loss of focus and restlessness. So if a child is this child is usually on point. This child is usually focused and determined and things like that. But all of a sudden, you see this child lose interest in everything, lose focus and concentration during like their study time or playtime or just their everyday activity. Or suddenly their grades drop. They usually A students or decent students, but then everything just falls apart and they just getting F's and C's and D's and whatever. It's something going on. It's like they're in their head instead of in the present moment. So avoidance is one, wanted to run away. Kids may want to run away from home or any person or scene that reminds them of the traumatic incident they went through. So just be very cognizant of that. Like if a child just wants to run away or they're avoiding everything, it's something going on. Okay? So children can definitely we need to be more mindful of the things that we say to our children. We need to be more mindful of the things that we do around our children and to our children. We need to be more mindful of the traumas that we have because we can pass that down to our children. And this is something that I know we really don't want to do, but sometimes we just don't know what else to do, like our parents did. But it's a point in time where you have to do something different. Because if you don't do something different, your child is going to be lost to the streets or lost in their own thoughts. And who wants that? Not a respectable parent, not a parent who cares about their child or cares about themselves. Because in order for us to care about our child, we got to care about ourselves. You can't care about somebody if you don't care about yourself at all. It's just not possible because you teach your child not to care about themselves. And believe me, children pick up on everything we say and do. They can sense it. If we don't respect ourselves, they won't respect us in turn, and they will not respect themselves when it comes to other people. So we have to remember that the things that we struggle with, we have to heal that because so they can have a chance. So let's look at how this translates into adulthood. And I always say childhood trauma is something that sticks with us. Even if we bury it deep down inside, it's still riding with us. It's still in our subconscious mind. It still controls everything in the background. If we don't know how to handle it, or if we choose not to handle it or deal with it, okay? So it's often difficult to process the things that we went through as children because at the time of the trauma, a child's mind a child's mind could not process the trauma, okay? Instead, we blamed ourselves for the childhood trauma. Eats away at our the child's stability and sense of self-worth. And this stays with the child until adulthood. If there is no intervention, okay? If there's no intervention, if there's nobody guiding this child through the trauma that they went through, it will stick with you until adulthood. There's no doubt about that. Trauma can cause shame, guilt, feeling disconnected, unable to relate to others, unable to control emotions. You may experience heightened anxiety, depression, or anger. And the way the child was abused, it can it can condition the way the child forms attachments later in life. And once the child believes that the people that were supposed to protect them or care for them, and they see that the adult doesn't, it may take a very long time to rebuild the trust for anyone. So if you're dealing with trust issues, that's another one. If you're dealing with trust issues, it's because of something that happened in your childhood where you cannot trust a parent. Even if you choose not to see it, it's true. Like if you have an absent parent in your life, say you don't have your father's in and out or your mother's in and out. It's like you don't trust people because it's like you want to trust people, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's like, are you gonna be there? Are you gonna come back? Are you gonna love me like you say you do? Because you can have a parent that's in and out, and they say, "Oh, I love you, I this, I that, blah blah blah." You know, I'm gonna be there always, but you're showing me that you're not gonna be there always. You're showing me that you don't love me. You're showing me that you don't even love yourself enough to love me. But a child can't process that as a child, you know. Um, So you might experience trust issues and things like that, or abandonment issues, because when a person is flighting in and out, they do abandon you. If somebody is not consistent through thick and thin with you, they are abandoning you. And you might have an issue with that. So you might leave people before they leave you so you won't feel the hurt. Or you might ghost people to have control over the situation because you didn't have control when you was a child. Okay? And as an adult, if we were mishandled by an adult, it can cause some serious attachment disorders. So there are certain attachment disorders that you can develop from being abandoned, or I'm saying, stuff like that. So one of them is dismissive avoidant attachment. Okay, and this is where the caregiver or parent rejected the child. Okay, and the child's needs. You know what I'm saying. And when the child becomes an adult, it chooses to be super independent to protect themselves from being rejected again. So, if you ignore your child, especially, okay, some kids act out for attention. They don't act out because they feel like being mischievous. They act out because they want your attention. Children need affection and attention. They need this. They have to have this. If they don't have it, then they will do anything to get it. Okay? But it definitely will follow you in adulthood, and you'll want to be independent. So you won't, to protect yourself. Like I said, you'll ghost people so you can have control. Okay? You'll make it seem like you don't need nobody because you got yourself. Fearful avoidant attachment is when a child experiences and is exposed to abuse and neglect. They fear intimacy and close relationships, leading to becoming distrustful and have a hard time sharing emotions and may seem disconnected from their partner. And this is a perfect example of when you abuse your child, or you neglect their feelings, or you neglect them, they don't know how to be vulnerable. They don't want to be vulnerable because they feel like if they're vulnerable, something might happen. That's like if a child is loving and open to their parent, but the parent is always like, get away from me, get off me, don't touch me, don't do that, stop talking to me, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to want it. They're going to be used to clamming up and hiding how they feel, being affectionate and things like that. And they're not going to want to do that when they get in a relationship with people. They're not going to want to share their emotions because they're afraid their emotions are going to get attacked. Okay? So they disconnect themselves because they're afraid to get closer. They're afraid to be intimate. Okay? And we also have anxious, preoccupied attachment. And this is when a child may have experienced the parent who is not consistent in emotional security. Okay? They will love on the child, then reject them repeatedly, causing the child to continually question their place and require validation as an adult. They may seem clingy or needy, often requiring repeated validation. So this is when, like, a child wants to know that they're loved. A child wants to know that they're appreciated and accepted and things like that. If a parent shows them that they're not, then when they get older, they're going to always want somebody to praise them. You're beautiful. You're good. I love you. You're good in the bed. You're good at this. You're such a great person. They're always going to want compliments, or they're always going to want you to pat them on the back all the time, which is nothing wrong with that. But it's like they're going to constantly, it's like they're going to fiend for it. It's like nobody should have to validate you. Nobody should have to tell you when you're an adult. You should know that you're beautiful. You should know that you are an amazing cook, or you're this or that. You're worthy of love. You're worthy of, respect and things like that. You should know this about yourself before you come into a relationship. But if you weren't given that, you don't. It's like you constantly question everything. So it's like narcissists. They need constant validation. Okay? Constant validation. You have to constantly put them up on a pedestal because they're insecure. They don't know. Okay, so those were just a couple of examples. So let's talk about the traumas. Okay, ways to, there's different ways to heal from childhood trauma. Okay, I mean, let me move this out the way. All right. So there's different ways that you can heal childhood trauma. You have to acknowledge and recognize the trauma. Do not minimize what you went through, okay? Healing starts with acknowledging that the trauma happened and it was not your fault. As a child, it was not your fault. If an adult tells a child, it's your fault that this is happening, no, it's not. No, it's not. Okay? Don't ever believe that. Reclaim control. Okay? And oftentimes we carry the feeling of being totally helpless or into our adulthood. This creates a feeling of perpetual victimhood, okay? This leads to us making choices based on our past path. When we allow that victimhood mentality from the past to control our present, we are not really present. We're not really in control. And it's important that we must always live in the present moment, not the past or even the future, okay? There is no doubt that the past pain will always be a part of our story or our testimony, okay? But once we acquire new tools to